The greasing procedure for our external bearing vane pump is quite simple, but maybe you're asking yourself, what if I could make it even more simple by leaving the grease relief fitting installed? I mean, think of all the time I could save by not removing that simple little fitting that takes roughly 5 seconds to remove. I mean, isn't the whole point of a relief fitting to let the grease escape? If I can't leave the fitting in while greasing, then what is the point? Well, let me tell you the engineering principles behind the grease relief fitting. As a pump operates, the bearing grease heats up from movement of the bearings and the shaft. The grease expands as it heats, and it needs some place to go. So the clever minds at Blackmer have added the grease relief fitting. As the grease expands in the bearing chamber, pressure will build. When the pressure exceeds the spring stiffness force of the grease relief fitting spring actuated pin assembly, the grease will escape through the relief fitting. This volume of grease is very small compared to the volume of grease that is introduced during the greasing procedure. Thus, the reason the tiny little grease relief fitting needs to be removed. Thank you, brilliant minds at Blackmer. So you know the design principles of the grease relief fitting, but you are still asking yourself, what damage could it really cause if I left the grease relief fitting in? From this image, you can see that just past the bearing is the mechanical seal. Any grease that gets past the bearing shield has the potential to go towards the mechanical seal. Did you know that a newly installed pump can leak as a result of improper greasing? Improper greasing causes the pump to leak because grease is forced between the seal faces, preventing the seal faces from mating together. If left unnoticed, a leaking pump can wash out the grease entirely, causing the bearings to seize and the pump to stop, all resulting from improper greasing. If you are wondering, why am I seeing this TXV 2.5B pump being disassembled while I'm gaining a wealth of knowledge? Well, for this video demonstration, we will be using a modified assembly to show that pump leaks can result from leaving the grease relief fitting installed during routine maintenance. When the relief fitting is left installed during maintenance, grease is forced through the bearing shield and between the mechanical seal faces, preventing the seal faces from mating together and ultimately causing the seal leak, which can lead to a pump seizing altogether. Don't be alarmed that both ends of the pump are not visually the same. The bearing cover on the outboard side has a metal shaft protector. Besides the different appearance of the two bearing covers, they are functionally the same. We removed the parts of the pump not needed for this test, which is why the cylinder and the rotor are not included. This test setup will allow us to easily disassemble the pump and allow us to view the bearing shield while the bearing is still installed in the head. Shown here, we are greasing the bearing per the installation operating manual by first removing the grease relief fitting. However, we wanted to demonstrate what would happen if we added too much grease. As you can see, the grease did not go past the bearing shield, even with us adding an extra full pump of the grease gun. Now let's save some time and see if it makes a difference if you leave the grease relief fitting installed. Here you can see that we greased the pump until we started to see grease coming out of the grease relief fitting expansion pin. Now let's have a look at the results. As we suspected, grease has passed the bearing shield. As we learned earlier, if grease gets past the bearing shield into the mechanical seal, we will expect the bearings to seize shortly after. So if you want to prevent unnecessary downtime and costly maintenance repairs, follow the proper greasing procedure and take those 5 seconds to remove the grease relief fitting. Thank you.
PSG, where innovation flows.